Okay, so my electric went off. So if you heard me screaming at the end of the stream, that's what it was about. I scream and throw things when that crap happens. I have to start over again. The only way that I could get back in to do this, to finish it, was to delete the original stream. Hey, Aaron, and go back and do this because it would not let me back in. I tried everything. It was trying to put me in a live stream that I did, hey, about Larry Solomon. And it's probably 2 years ago when I was having issues with Larry and his stupid threats and stuff. This is the reality of Costa Rica. I tell everybody, we're in a second world nation here. We're not in the third world nation. We're not in a first world nation. Second world all the way here. And the reality is during rainy season, our electric bounces around like a pinball. And I know why that is, because they're trying to upgrade everything here to be first world, and not everything is yet. So that's what's going on. We're having a day where there's not even much in the way of water, our water system. They're working on it. So we're without water for the day. I guess you can call me without water, without any water, instead of without a box of Kleenex or something like that. So anyway, let me recap. I talked a little bit about Jana Duggar, Jana, and her, I'm sweaty from running around screeching and resetting everything and returning everything back on. Jana may be or may not be in a courtship. We don't know. People are gossiping about it. They need to just leave that poor girl alone. She's had plenty. And then I started reading the awful things. They're asking all the same questions all over again about homeschooling, spanking children, discipline, all of that. And this is the second or maybe even third time they've asked those questions. So I'm not even going to go back over those questions again. They're all the same. And I'm just going to go where this, because this one really makes me laugh. This is really about what it's like. This one that makes me laugh and cringe at the same time. What type of relationship should your children have with non-Baptist classmates or friends? Really? In the Duggar family, there's no such thing as outside friends that aren't saved exactly the same kind of religious thought, Baptist or not, that they practice. They seem right now to be going to an independent fundamentalist Baptist church, but a lot of times we're talking Church of the Holy Basement, and you're making it up as you're going along. So damn good and well, none of those kids got any kind of interaction with kids who went to public school. So there's that. So I think that question is ridiculous. Would you send your children to visit their extended family if they live in another state or even country? Well, I would hope that would be a yes, but I think they're probably hinting around that family is not safe. What type of relationship do you want your children to have with all their grandparents? If there are members of my family that are not Baptist, what type of relationship do you want to have with them? Really? You're really going to throw shade at family who does not believe exactly the same way as you believe? Oh, Lordy, that's way more control freak than anything I've seen in a long time. Oh, where was I? Baptist friendships. How important is it? How important? Oh, wait a minute. Whoa. Where am I? How important is the upbringing of children in the grand scheme of things? Again, that's another one they've asked at least 2 times in different form. How significant is it to be entrusted with the guardianship of their souls? Again, a repeat. Do you want children? Okay, they've already asked that at least 3 times now. including earlier in this same damn section. Do you view children as a measure of God's favor or adding a blessing that he may or may not give? Whoa now. They want them to ignore their in-laws that are not on the Duggar side very, very closely. I don't think so, Jessica. I think that that's been there from the beginning. I think that's been there from the beginning. They had each of the Duggar in-law sons fill this out, and I don't know if the girls did or not, because this seems to be geared mostly at the guys joining the family, just the way it's worded. It seems like they want to isolate any children you may have from anybody who's not with the last name Duggar. Somehow they think that somehow that is sinful of them, and they're not going to let their kids around sinfulness. And here's another thing that irks me. Said that all those children are a sign of God's favor. If that's the case, then hamsters and rabbits must have loads of God's favor because they reproduce like crazy. Even stray cats have babies. It's biology. It's not spirituality. And I don't think that they understand that. They think that it is everything is God's favor or God's judgment. Everything that happens to you, which is a load of malarkey if you look at the things that happen to people. You can't tell me that the God that they believe in runs around giving people cancer and MS for fun. Yes, this whole thing is set up to ignore in-laws, I think, a lot of ways. Okay, here we go again. How do you discipline children? That is the third or fourth time that they've asked this. What are the duties of children? Duties. The only duty of a child is to grow and to learn. Everything else is negotiable. What standard of excellence are they held to? Well, certainly not in a academic one, because they use the most ridiculous, unscientific teaching methods. They use the Bill Gothard ATI booklets that are ridiculous. Like I said, they don't line up with science, social studies, nothing. They just making it up as they go along. Where would we set expectations for them? And okay, I'm going to put a link in the description here to the actual scanned in ATI booklets, because we have them at NLQ and no longer Quivering. What would their education entail? History, science, theology, creation, biology, music, arts. How do you treat an unsaved child spiritually and physically in the context of a Christian family? Why are they thinking that they're going to bring an unsaved child in? Is this more the possible adoption nonsense they were pushing for a while? When does corporal discipline begin? Another question about beating children. How do you begin to train infants? They're wanting you to spout the Michael Pearl line, the blanket training line, where you start beating the child when they're 6 months old by tempting them to get off the blanket. And when they get off the blanket, you pull out the switch and whack them, or the wooden spoon, or whatever you think you're going to hit people with. What does play look like for children? Free time. I don't think there's much free time in the way that Quiverfull families are set up. There's almost no free time. Almost every day is regimented. We have seen in Michelle Duggar's earlier turns at TLC, the chore charts, the charts for every single day, regimented to every single minute practically. What attitudes and personality traits are held up as off limits? Personality traits are traits that you have. They're not something that can be trained out. What words or phrases are off limits? Well, I'm guessing pretty much everything on the, I forgot the name of the comedian who had the 7 dirty words you could never say on TV. I'm guessing that's the bedrock, and there are about 50 trillion other words, simple words like crap, that are off limits, would be my guess, just from my years doing this and being part of that. What are the things you appreciate most about the way your parents raised you? We already covered that too. What would you do differently than your parents? Who do you want your children to grow up to be? You know something? I got to talk about that one for a minute. I realized early on that having expectations who your children would be is a fool's game. It really is, because so much of that depends upon their personality and how that develops. Their friends, their lives, their interests, all of that. And you don't really know that at all from the beginning. You just don't. You have hopes for them, but you don't have the expectations. You can't say they must be this way or that. I've got 3 different kids in 3 different fields. I've got a child that is a medical masseuse. I would have never seen that in her early years. I would have never seen any interest in that. I have a child that works as an HR trainer with a charitable organization that deals with infectious disease doctors and supporting them, which, since COVID started, that's her job has been crazy. And then I have another child that works with computers, that works for a very large federal government contractor. And I would have seen none of that. The only one that I even slightly saw is I saw my middle daughter my last daughter was very outgoing. So that doesn't surprise me that she's doing that. And she's also very caring about others. And my son, he loves computers. He loved them from the time he was little. So I guess I could see those things. But anything else beyond that? There are things I don't agree with about my kids at all, and I'm fine with that because they are their own people. I would never try to squash their personality traits like this thing does. You're just asking for trouble if you do. Caveman days. Just at lunch. Have a great day. You too, Jenna. Let me go back. How do we model ourselves to our children? Our lifestyle traits, personalities, things we laugh at or don't laugh at, that we approve of, etc., etc. Really, you should be modeling behavior you want to see your children do all the time. And sometimes that's harder than others. I'm going to just throw that out there. That's not an easy task all the time, particularly when it's something that you're trying to be stern with your child and you're trying not to laugh. I've had that experience too many times. Do you believe in birth control? What type is okay to use? Do you believe in abstinence? We covered this earlier too. How many children would you like to have? Again, a repeat. This has got to be a trick question. Do you have a gender preference and why? Do you have a preference on home birth or hospital birth? Well, we've seen the Duggars do both home births and hospital births, and those poor girls in the second generation are not having an easy time of it with home births. And I have to think that that may be the way that the family nutritional standards from before they became famous, because we saw how they ate then and it was not healthy. And it may have done some damage. We don't know. Do you have a problem with running both with nursing versus bottle feeding our children? Oh my goodness. Are you approachable in the areas of child rearing or in any area? In other words, can Jim Bob step in and tell you how to do this? And will you follow him? What is your idea of discipline? What is your view of discipline? We're here again. Somebody is really getting off in a kind of weird sexual manner. And the idea of spanking, as badly as Michael Pearl, it sounds like. What is your view of spanking? How were you dealt with when you did something wrong when you were a child? Do you plan on dealing with our children the same way? Do you feel like it was a biblical way of dealing with the problem? Were you ever spanked in anger? Well, I can honestly say the only time that I really got spanked, my father was furious. So that does happen. And I don't think spanking is a good idea. There are better ways to discipline your kids. I use love and logic for the most part, and it worked well. He wants the guys to weigh. I know. The bottle feeding versus breastfeeding is kind of weird. That was kind of a weird question in the middle of this abusive BS that he's talking here. Where was I? How did that make you feel? Well, damn, you get spanked in anger, you're going to get kind of angry over that. Have you dealt with that offense, if any? Do you have a different way in mind? We already covered that too. Would you be willing to listen to Dr. Davis's parenting DVD before or after we have children? DVDs! This was written like, what, 20 years ago? Had to have been. They're still talking about DVDs. That's really funny. Are you willing to accept parenting advice about parenting and ask for both of our parents? Again, they're circling around to having Jim Bob tell them what to do and saying, yes, that's okay. The next question just cracks me up. If not, why not? Because it's none of his freaking business how you raise your children and how you discipline them. You're not going to discipline the children in a way that you feel bad about. I mean, even if it's spanking and you're doing it the Duggar style and the Pearl style, where there seems to be like some sexuality connected to it. Some weird thing. So that's just a no. In-laws need to stay out. Parents need to stay out of people's business. And it's hard. One of my children was married for a very long time, and I had to bite my tongue so many times it was ridiculous. I only spoke up once or twice when it was really, really important. One of those was financial, and we're going into the financial section of this. What is your definition of wealth? That's actually a really smart question, because that really varies wildly between people. A lot of people in the Duggars realm do not understand what wealth is. I'm not even sure that the Duggars understand it or understand how to handle it. One of the things I did at NLQ that I'm proud of was when I did a review of Lori Alexander's first book, she did a section on money handling, and she missed so many things. So I went there and I broke down everything that she did. It was a huge, long article, but I felt like it was things that needed to be said, and how to build wealth, how to accumulate it, what to do, how you spend your money, the whole 9 yards. That stuff needs to be taught to everybody, not just Quiverfull kids. How do you spend money? They want to know if you spend a lot of money here. They want to know if you're a spendthrift. How do you save money? Well, you don't spend much and you put it aside. How do you think your use of money will change after marriage? Do you have any debts now? We already asked that question. If so, how are you making progress in eliminating them? We asked that question earlier too. Do you use credit cards? Do you support the idea of taking loans to buy a new home? Both of those questions are kind of trick questions in the Duggar world, because they don't believe in using credit cards and they don't believe in taking out mortgages to buy or build homes. Even if it meant all umpteen zillion of their kids living in a rental home that only had 1 bathroom and 3 bedrooms and was condemned, it was torn down as soon as they moved out because it was condemned. So that's pretty foolish. mortgage debt is different than regular debt. You're building equity in the home. Mortgage debt, many times, most of the time, is just like if you were putting money in the bank. You're building equity. What are you expecting from your spouse financially? That's an important question to ask before you get married, most definitely. I just think they're asking it way too soon. What is your financial responsibility to the marriage? They want to hear, work my ass off in 3 jobs and or pinch a penny so hard that Abe thinks that you are married Todd Lincoln. That's what they want to hear. These questions are pretty easy to fudge if you know what directions. I'm not sure that any of the spouses would be 100% correct answering these, given their honest answer. I don't know. What is your financial responsibility in marriage? That's what they're looking for. Do you support the idea of a working wife? Now, they asked that already. If so, do you think a dual income family should manage funds? I'm not sure what he's asking there. Manage funds. Every couple manages funds well or poorly, and that really depends upon you. Do you currently use a budget to manage your finances? Who are the people to whom you are financially responsible? Who are the people to whom you're financially responsible? The only thing I could think of, if this is like a Duggar son-in-law, potential son-in-law, they may want to make sure that you're not supporting your entire Quiverfull family with your mom and dad, your cousins, all of that. Who knows? Who knows supporting? Okay, I got to go back to this because I've been skipping all these. Taught how to budget and save. I agree. Manage money. Hey, JC, why is it in his business? Is this like a questionnaire they ask people who want to marry Duggar kids? Yes, JC, before they let them go into courtship. This is a pre-courtship questionnaire. So they're asking all these intimate questions that are nobody's business before they let the person anywhere near the Duggar daughter and or son. Jim Bob, to the potential guys who want to court the daughters. Yep. It's crazy. It's crazy. None of this is any of his business. I agree. I have a question. The way these questions are asked, do you think that women are not allowed to want an epidural? It's a husband's choice. I don't know. That's an interesting point. I'd have to think about that. I know that they glorify home birth because it saves money and they think it's more natural and godly. So there's no epidurals at home birth. I can tell you that. So probably he wants to know if the wife has a say in how to spend money. Yeah, well, she should have a say in how the money gets spent, even if she does not work outside the home. She should have a say. Maybe it's a good thing for the guys so they can go ahead and dip out while they can. JC, I just said they could answer these questions dishonestly and easily get past Jim Bob, who's not a very sophisticated person. They probably could. He's insane and controlling. I got to agree with that. He is insane. We have seen Amish and Mennonite deny their women birth control and pain meds on discharge to the hospital. Well, I'll say this, okay? I don't know if the Amish and the Mennonites do this. I knew some Mennonites that did this secretly behind the husband's back. They either went and got birth control on their own, or they practiced a lot of the old ones that aren't the most accurate, but at least they're better than not having birth control. I've seen that happen. A wife should always have the say in the money spent. Amanda, I agree with that. And JC, yes, this is a giant boundary crossing document. That's why I chose to read it. Once I reread it recently, I was like, because I'd been out so long and not writing in LQ, that if you're not toiling in the minds of this stuff every day, you forget exactly how crazy it all is. And they don't do boundaries. There are no boundaries. It's whatever the patriarch in charge of the entire family says that goes. And I can see that Jim Bob is setting himself up as the family patriarchy, a la Larry Solomon and biblical gender roles. And Von Ullman. Von Ullman was big on one leader over the entire family, the oldest man. They're setting themselves up as a theonomy with a father God at the top, displacing God in some ways. Oh, also other nationalities are, let's get to the depot shots. Yes, yes, yes. It happens. It happens. I've seen it happen. Zero boundaries in this type of lifestyle. Yes, there are no boundaries. You're not allowed to have any kind of boundaries at all, or likes, dislikes. You're not allowed to have personality traits. Did you catch that? Where they said that you should suppress certain kinds of personality traits? That kind of blows my mind. You just want you to give your child the freedom to be who they are. At least that's my belief. Okay, now we're back here. Here's one we haven't asked. What is your current job? Are you punctual or late for work? None of your business. Do you plan on handling the finances? Would you seek my opinion on purchases beforehand? Again, wives need to know. Do you pay your bills on time? Can I see your last 4 months worth of bank statements? Oh my God. Okay. That is inappropriate at that stage of the game. That is something that you might ask in premarital counseling right before you get married. But even then, you would be crossing a boundary. That is the worst one I've heard yet. It's crazy. Anybody that asks you for 4 months of your bank statements who isn't someone like, let's see, when we came here and we opened our bank accounts, I'm going to give you a little taste of Costa Rica. To have a bank account that we could transfer money in from the States and prove that we weren't drug runners with drug money, we had to provide them with 6 months worth of statements and 2 years of 2 years of tax forms from the IRS, our 1040s, I think it is, just to get past that hurdle. And there have been a couple other times that we've had to provide that here too. But these are organizations that are dealing with this in a professional manner that need the information, not a nosy potential father-in-law that wants to know how you spend your money because he's stupid, ridiculously over-involved with all of his children's everything. Do you have any debt at the present time? This is the third or fourth time we've asked that too. Have you had debt in the past? Again, one we've asked. What did you do to get out of it? We've asked that a bunch too. How do you feel about debt? Is it a bad thing or a good thing? A repeat, do you live on a budget? Oh my God, they just asked that earlier in the same section. Are you willing to live on a budget? Do you have any credit cards? Again, we've asked about credit cards. How many credit cards do you have? How much do you owe on man out there as Americans do?